Hi, this is Richie KOTZEN on Sonic Perspective.
Hello everyone, it's Rodrigo here bringing you another interview for Sonic Perspectives. Today, I'm honored to speak with the one and only Mr. Richie KOTZEN. Richie, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, man. I know you speak a little bit of Portuguese, so maybe I should say bom dia.
Bom dia, You know, you're going to embarrass me here. I only know the bad words, like
That's all right.
Saiyaki, or Gambiaha, because,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know some strange words. But, I get in trouble a lot because I'm just too lazy, and I really should know a lot of Portuguese, being that I'm married to a Brazilian.
Yeah.
So this is something that I promise I'm going to focus on for the future.
All right, good stuff. But let's talk about the upcoming release of Smith KOTZEN. I think it's an unlike pairing, which you did an amazing album. But how did you guys meet at first?
Well, it was very interesting how we met. It was many years ago, and I was out one night with a friend of mine, and we were driving around looking for something to do. And there is a place in L.A. called the Sunset Marquee, and it's a tiny little bar in a hotel on a side street. And I used to go in there all the time in the 90s. That was a real popular place for musicians to hang out.
Yeah.
And one night, and this wasn't the 90s, this was, 2000s, and it kind of had died off. But one night I went in there and just hanging out, and we started talking to this woman who was interested in music, and my friend said, Richie's a guitar player and this and that. And then she said, oh, well, my husband is an Iron Maiden.
Wow.
And, I have been a fan of Iron Maiden since, I've been a child. I mean, it's one of my favorite bands of all time. I played Number of the Beast every morning before I went to school when it came out. So, there was that and Black Sabbath were my bands back in that particular era of my life. So, we hit it off, and she said, well, Adrian's coming to town. When he comes into town, I'll make sure you guys can meet. And so Adrian and I eventually met, and we developed into a friendship. And my wife and Adrian's wife are friends, so we all became friends. And every time they would come to L.A., we'd get together, go for dinner, and they would have holiday parties at the house, and there would always be like a jam session happening by the end of the night. Somewhere along the line, we'd go into the studio and start messing around, playing cover songs. And in more recent times, Natalie, his wife, had mentioned, you guys should try and write a song together, see what happens. So we got together, and then one thing led to another, and now we've got this album.
Awesome. And I don't think not many people know this, but your first ever concert was Iron Maiden in 1985. If you only knew you would be playing with Adrian many years later, right?
Oh, yeah. Can you believe that? And it was the Peace of Mind tour. I saw them in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is not far from where I grew up. And it was the loudest concert I've ever been to, by the way. To this day, that was the loudest concert.
That says something, yeah. And you recorded the album in Turks and Caicos. What was it like to record there in terms of recording facilities and whatnot?
Well, I had never been there before, and Adrian goes down there a lot. So they suggested we do something different. And we went down there. Everything was set up for us, so I didn't have to worry about anything. I had just done a show in Miami, and then I went on a cruise and did a performance. So I was already, close by, so I got on the plane. Julia, my wife, and I went down there. And to be honest, the first couple of days, I didn't want to bother to do anything except lay on the beach and drink caipirinhas or whatever we were drinking down there.
As you do.
And it was fantastic. But then we got into a routine, and eventually we got to work and do what we had to do. So Adrian and I ended up producing the record, did everything ourselves, and then when it was all done, we sent the final files, whatever you call it. No tape these days. I used to record on tape. Back in the day, I had a tape machine in my house, and I used to cut tape to edit. I would splice the 24 track machine and everything. I learned how to do all that stuff, but now you send files. So we sent the files to Australia, which is a lot cheaper to send files than audio tape. And Kevin Shirley got a hold of it and just did a fantastic job mixing it. And when they sent it back, the first song, I said, oh yeah, you got to have this guy mix the whole record. So that was nice. And so everything came together. But I got to say, to me now, I have it right here in my office. I'm looking at it. And I have it in vinyl. It reminds me of one of those classic albums that I would have had when I was a kid, and that's why I'm so proud of it, that, obviously it's got Adrian's name on the cover, so that's a big deal for me. Adrian Smith, Richie Kotzen together. But the thing, it looks and feels and sounds like one of those records that I would have bought back in the day. So I'm very excited to get this out there so people can hear it.
Very cool. And it's great how you guys split the bass and the vocals on all the tracks, and there's almost a seamless transition between you two in the verses. How is the decision made for every track in terms of who's going to sing what, who's going to play bass where?
Yeah, well, a lot of, the bass stuff, I play bass on my records. I hate saying this, but I consider myself a bass player as much as a guitar player because I have the privilege of growing up around great bass players. As you know, I've been in 2 bands with Billy Sheehan, Mr. Big and the Winery Dogs, and I was in a band with Stanley Clarke, and so, those are 2, top of the food chain guys right there. And then a long list of other amazing guys, from Jeff Berlin I played with, and T.M. Stevens, and all these guys. So I picked up a lot, and bass is something that I always gravitated towards as a young person. I love, Stevie Wonder, Talking Book record. The bass on that record is fantastic. So it was real natural for me to grab the bass on a couple songs, and Adrian played bass on a couple things. So it just made sense. We had ideas. Somebody'd hear a line. Let me try this. I got an idea for a bass line. And then with the singing, it really was a matter of, who had an idea. So, for example, Taking My Chances, Adrian brought that riff in, and then he had an idea what to sing over it, when that verse came, when it opens up to the verse. And then the next part, I said, well, let me try something. I got an idea. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we really did that. It just kind of went naturally. So it's almost like, if somebody had an idea for a melody, then they'd sing it. Although it's not like that on every song. There are a couple songs where it went the other way, where maybe Adrian had an idea for a melody and I'd, sing it.
Okay.
So,
almost
anyway,
an even split.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you did most of the drums on the album, but you also have Tal Bergman adding some flavor on 3 songs, and Nico from Iron Maiden on the song Solar Fire. Can you comment on that?
Sure. When things started rolling in a way that I started realizing quickly that, I was the drummer on the album, and, we wanted to get some different flavors. And, as far as me and my drumming, I kind of come from a Simon Kirke, John Bonham school of drumming. I love John Bonham, so I like that kind of style. But I don't have that kind of machine gun, big fill, kind of big shooter type drum fills. I don't have that in my arsenal. So when we did Solar Fire, I said, I can play on this, but man, it'd be nice to get someone with a little more, facilities to do this, make it a little more aggressive, a little more, entertaining. And so he had the idea to call Nico, and, he just did a great job. I mean, the fills he put on there just, set it off to me. I think he did a great job. And then once we decided to do that for Solar Fire, I thought, well, I just did a couple shows with Tal Bergman, who I've known since I was 26, who I also took with me when I opened for the Rolling Stones. I picked him to go over there to Japan with me. And so he did a couple songs, and he's one of those guys that comes in, he listens to what you got, and we had everything mapped out, like with either a drum loop or a click track, a guide guitar, guide vocals. And he said, all right, well, let me listen to it. So he'd sit there for about, 20 minutes with a piece of paper and a pencil, not say nothing, just play it back and forth, write stuff down. He says, okay, I got it. Let's go. And he'd go down there and just bang, done in one take. All right, great. Let me fix this one section. So that was great. But, that was just how it happened. And, they did a great job on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me about Scars. In my head, I keep imagining that song being stretched live with you and Adrian exchanging solos on like a long jam kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be great. We're going to have to stretch some stuff out because we only have 9 songs. We only have 9 songs, so we're going to have to come up with something. But we are talking about playing live. I mean, the idea, we got half of this right. The first half was getting the record released in March, and that was always the plan. This thing was finished before the pandemic hit, so in our minds, I had 4 continents of dates booked for myself for the 50 for 50 album that I put out in February of 2020, and he had dates for Maiden. So we thought, all right, well, let's release Smith Kotzen in March of 2021, and then come April, we'll go do some shows. So half of that we got right. We got the record coming out here in March. Unfortunately, we can't tour, but the plan eventually when things open up is for us to get out there and do some live shows.
Okay. Fingers crossed. By the way, forgive my ignorance, but I always thought you played Tellers exclusively. But on the video for Scars, you're playing a Strat. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, I play. Yeah, you got to go back and look at my videos. I'm about 50-50. Telly Strat, like on one of the last music videos I put out, I was playing a Strat. But, I go back and forth. Like, so, back in the early 90s, 91, I was doing the Telly. Then for, like, when I did the Motherhead's Family Reunion record in 94, I was playing Strats. And, I kind of go back and forth. On this record, I'm playing both. But at one point on this record, you can go back and listen to it. On the song I Want to Stay, and I think one other song, I actually grabbed Adrian's Jackson, and I did a solo. And that thing took me back to my teenage years because it has a locking tremolo system, which I abandoned those things years ago because they're such a pain in the ass to tune and deal with. But back then I used to play them, so I grabbed his guitar, and I was playing that, using that bar, and I listened back to the solo. So it sounds like a teenage Richie Kotzen came back and did a solo on the record. So if you go listen to it, you'll hear me. I sound like back to my Shrapnel record roots on that particular song, but it's because I just grabbed his guitar to do the solo just to try something different.
Right. Awesome. Another song that has that slow burn kind of feel that you could easily jam to and stretch is You Don't Know Me, right? With 7 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. Is that the one that has the long solo at the end? I got to go back and listen because, the problem, I don't know if it's a problem, but I tend to make records and then I never listen to them again until I got to play it live. And then I'll go back and I'll study it and figure out what I did.
Right.
But, I think I got to listen to this stuff again, figure out what I did.
It does have that jam kind of feel on that song, so I think you're right.
Yeah, well, I figure once we get out and play live, we'll stretch out some things because we're both players. We like to play, so we'll stretch out some things, maybe pull in a song, from Adrian's that's not a Smith Kotzen song, maybe pull in one of mine,
okay.
Probably throw in a couple covers in there. We could put a good set together.
Wow. I can't wait to see you live, man. I think this record has everything that the old 70s fan is willing to happen in 2021, I think.
Cool.
And Adrian mentioned that I Want to Stay, which you just mentioned, was the song that took the longest of all to reach its final form. Can you tell me what was difficult about that one in particular?
Well, that song, there's a melody there that in the chorus that leads, the opening line, first couple lines there. And that was in my head the entire time I was down there in Turks and Caicos, and it was kind of making me crazy, like literally. And I even say that in the song, "Oh, She Makes Me Crazy." I actually put that in the lyric because the melody was making me crazy. And I just couldn't, because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to say. And that happens, sometimes, you have an idea for a song, you sing it into your recorder so you don't forget it. Other times you don't need to because the melody just sticks with you. So I knew it was something that needed to be written because it wasn't going away. And then one night it clicked. I went in there, got in front of the microphone, and just started messing around, and it came together. But he's right. That one took probably the longest to get going.
And Running, second song on the album, is particularly catchy for me. Am I right in saying that there's a Lenny Kravitz kind of vibe on that song? Or maybe Lenny drank from the same fountain as you guys?
Oh, man. Well, it's possible. We're all drinking from the same fountain. But I'm trying to think. Running is an interesting song. That came in. That is the first song that we worked on together, if you can imagine that. That was the beginning where we thought, okay, we got something. And so that riff came out of, Adrian brought that riff in, which maybe might be where you're getting that vibe from. Mm-hmm. And then the chorus I came up with, and that riff led me into the chorus. And that was the first thing we did. And, when we were talking about sequencing the record and everything, we were trying to figure out what to do. We didn't know if that should be first or taking my chances. And then finally we settled into what's on the album right now.
Okay. And final question for me. What is next for you in 2021? Another solo album or maybe the Winery Dogs, or what's the plan?
Man, it's so hard to make plans. I had big plans when I was coming out of this recording the Smith Kotzen record. Had all kinds of plans, and then they all went out the window. So right now we're doing as much as we can to let people know about the Smith Kotzen record. Interestingly, I've been talking to Stanley Clarke again, and we got something we've been working on. We're taking our time. Nobody's in a rush, but we'll see what comes out of it. And I actually started writing some new music for myself that's very, very different than anything I've done. It's very interesting. I played a song last night for Julia, my wife, and she said, "Wow." She said, I never heard anything like that come out of this room. She said, "That's really something."
Wow.
So, there will always be another solo record as long as I'm walking around. I'll always make my records and my music. And then, the Winery Dogs, we did a tour in 2019 that was really just a great tour. I had a great time, one of my favorite tours I've done. And coming out of that, we were primed to throw around some ideas. And then, with COVID, that just knocked us out. The problem is, Adrian's got a house here in L.A. That's not what I'm going to say the problem is. But Adrian's got a house in L.A., so, he's going to come back. He and I are going to write more. But with Billy and Mike, one guy's in Pennsylvania, one guy's in Nashville, and I'm in California. To make a proper Winery Dog record, we got to be in the same room. We can send files around. I kind of tried to do that earlier in the year. I had a song I put out called Raise the Cane, and I thought maybe we could try to send some files around. But the reality is to do a Winery Dog record, we need to get in the room and throw ideas, because that's how we work. That's the magic of that band. So we're going to do it. It's just a matter of when it's safe. When are people coming? Not everybody wants to get on the airplane. Personally, I'm not willing to get on an airplane right now. I'm just not. I'm not going to do it. But once things open up and it's everybody is clean and safe, then we can look at it.
Yeah, understood. Well, Richie, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. All the best with this release, and stay safe and healthy.
All right, man. Thanks for the interview.
Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, everyone, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this interview with Richie KOTZEN. The interview is available on many formats: YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Also, please follow us on Twitter and Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to finish off with Taking My Chances, the first single of Richie's collaboration with Adrian Smith. Crank it up, upset your neighbors, and see you next time.